Hi, I'm Daria, a surface pattern and textile designer and artist, both traditional and digital. I turn illustrations like this into fabric designs like this. On this channel, I'm talking all things textile, pattern, color, and artwork. Patterns are everywhere. Please do me a favor and subscribe to my channel so that we can stay the textile bodies that we are, and hit that notification bell icon so you don't miss a new video. So one of the most common questions that I get as a textile designer is, how do you get started as a textile designer? In a nutshell, you need to resolve two things. First, how are you going to start making your artwork, and how are you going to finish your art on the computer? So when I say start, I mean create motifs, and motifs are separate elements that make a textile design. So these bugs or these flowers are the motifs. And finish means the finishing process on the computer, which would be cleaning up your scans if it's necessary, separating your motifs, making a repeat tile, and coloring. The next video that I'll be posting will be specifically about making textile design motifs, because there is a variety of ways that you can do it, and it's kind of a big deal, you know, it's the beginning process. Before you even begin designing, I want you to think about several things. Number one, what kind of art do you like? What speaks to you? Do you like watercolor or graphic outline style, or tattoo art, or inky stains, gory Halloween? What kind of artist are you? You know, what do you gravitate towards? Maybe you like cute baby designs or sophisticated home decor, etc. So here you sort of need to look both at the technique and the market. Number two, think about what skills you already have that you could use. For example, I got a comment on YouTube asking me how to get started as a textile designer, and honestly, I was a little overwhelmed for a second, because I was like, where do I even start? You know, it's such a general, broad question. So I said, you know, choose what you like, you know, what kind of style you like, and then you need to decide whether you want to be more based in Photoshop or Illustrator. And then the person comments and says, I actually have been working in Photoshop for 20 years. Well, use that to your advantage. You already have all these great skills. You don't need to learn the software. And I'll talk about myself. So way before I became a textile designer, I was trained as a painter, and I went to an art school as a teenager. So I learned all the classic, you know, base of drawing, painting, composition, color, and all those things. And I think it actually predetermined my style later on as a textile designer. I never really realized it until I started making this video, but it's definitely true. So I tried different kinds of artwork. I did vector for a while, for example, and I still do it a little bit, but I'm still a painter at heart, and that's why watercolor is my main medium. I also showed you a Procreate pattern in the beginning with the bugs, this black fabric that I created. Actually, I tried doing Procreate. I tried to force myself to do Procreate, but it didn't really click with me, so I have only made a handful of Procreate patterns, even though it's probably the most trending style right now. The third question I want you to ask yourself is, how comfortable are you with technology? Because there are several different ways to go with creating textile designs, and a lot will depend on, you know, do you like to work in Photoshop or Illustrator, or are you comfortable working on an iPad? Because you could do everything on an iPad these days. But again, I'm telling you, I'm not the case. I know it's super convenient. You can do it on the go. You can travel with an iPad. But I really like, you know, my paint and paper. So I'm choosing that over the modern technology. The advantages of digital art are, you can do it on the go. It's trending right now, like I said. It's easy to scale. It's easy to recolor if it's done right. You don't need to scan anything. You don't need to clean up motifs. You don't need to buy supplies. So as you can see, a lot of advantages, but some artists like me still prefer traditional art because of, you know, the taste and because of the skills that they have. and you will be working either in Photoshop or Illustrator. If you are working on an iPad, you can either learn to do everything on an iPad, but I would say it's a little bit more advanced. Most of Procreate artists still end up in Photoshop, so Procreate is very similar to Photoshop in a lot of things. Adobe Illustrator, you might have already heard of the program. It's a great software, but it's a completely different way of thinking than Photoshop, because in Photoshop pretty much it emulates the real life process of drawing and painting. You know, like you have a piece of paper and you have your brush and you are painting on it, and you do the same in Photoshop. Illustrator is a completely different way. It's more of like an engineered way of thinking. You will be working with curves and anchor points, but the most important advantage of Illustrator is that you can scale anything without losing the quality. You can draw something as small as this and you can scale it as tall as a building without losing the quality. You cannot do it in Photoshop. So in the end, choosing, which way to go is your taste and your skills. Some people like milk and some people like wine. So first choose what you like. Traditional, which would be, painting and drawing. I will talk again about it in the next video. Or digital. Then I would say find some classes on Skillshare or YouTube. There are a lot of free resources. It's amazing. People are very generous in sharing their knowledge. Skillshare is a great resource. You can find pretty much anything on it. This would have been a great opportunity for me to advertise my classes, but I don't have any of them yet. I'm definitely thinking of it. I know I can definitely do it because I'm a trained teacher. I used to teach English, so I know I can do it. If you guys are interested, leave me a comment. Should I work on courses? I was thinking of creating some watercolor to textile design classes, but maybe you are interested in something else. So also look at artists' websites, find an artist whose style you like and see if they offer classes. Be careful not to copy their style exactly, because you need to listen to your heart and infuse a little bit of you in your design. Don't be afraid to show your personality, because there is this artist in the community who is really big right now. You might know who I'm talking about. She's a great designer. She's very successful. Her first education is business, so she's a very good business person, and she taught so many classes, so many courses. But the thing is, the art that her students make looks exactly like her art. You can't really tell them apart. So it's very tempting, and it's easy in the beginning just to repeat, the steps and do the exact same thing, or even sometimes people use the same palettes. But also try to, don't be afraid to stand out a little bit. Like, what makes you unique? What is your twist on textile and surface pattern design? So what you need to learn to become a textile designer is how to create motifs, how to digitize traditional art. You can skip this if you are doing digital art. So that would include the scanning, the cleanup, working with layers and motif separation. So you'll be basically moving stuff around, and making something that will become your repeat eventually. You guys, I cannot believe I omitted the most important one: how to create a repeat unit. My script must have been between pages. How to create colorways, how to make collections of designs, how and where to sell textile designs, what kind of art to make. So that would include trends, seasons, and markets. So I would say a good textile design course or courses would include these topics. Maybe not right away, it's a lot, it's a job, it's a profession, but maybe take a class about the techniques first, and then later on you can start thinking about trends and markets. But always, even if you are just starting out, like I mentioned, try to learn to think, to have this mentality of like, what is this going to be? I'm making this textile design. Is it going to be a home decor item? Is it going to be a baby clothing fabric? Try to, don't get too caught up with it, but kind of think about it a little bit. So just to sum everything up once again, I would say decide what kind of art do you like and what do you want to make, what do you really enjoy, and for what market, what kind of look are you going for? Because I personally like more sophisticated designs, very classically inspired, maybe a little bit old school even, but I also do kids designs and very playful designs, sometimes something really whimsical. That's another talk about like choosing your style and what topics to do. That's a huge deal. I think we need a separate video on that, on like finding your style and so on and so forth. Let me know if you are interested. Also think, do you already have skills that you could use? Maybe you are a very confident Illustrator user already, so you can, you know, tick that box and it will be so much easier for you. But even if you don't know anything, don't be afraid, you can still learn, don't get discouraged. I would say the technical part comes first. So like if you know how to put together a repeat, maybe it won't even be the greatest, the most beautiful, fashionable design in the world, but it's like it's working, it's a repeat, you know, it's repeating like the fabric. Then you can start thinking about, okay, is this a good design? Would anyone buy it, and what would they buy it for? Because of course in the beginning there's a lot of information, you can get easily overwhelmed. I remember myself being in college for textile design. We were taking all those great classes, but it was so much information in a brief period of time that, you know, you just filter out a lot of information. You get back to that later and you're like, oh, we actually spoke about this, now I remember, but it just slipped your memory because there's so much to learn. So, you know, one thing at a time, first things first, and don't be afraid. Okay, now maybe you are wondering, I am at square one, I have no idea how to make art, I have never made any art whatsoever. Then maybe I would say, in my personal opinion, consider doing digital art, because you won't have to deal with scanning, cleaning up the paper texture out of the scan. You can literally draw everything on iPad, and then you can skip so many stages. A couple words on college and Skillshare. And do you have to go to college to study textile design? Absolutely not. You do not have to do it. Why did I go to college? One of the reasons was that I didn't know you can learn textile design without going to college. And honestly, at the time, it was 2015-16, there weren't as many courses available. Now you have everything, you have so much information. I went to college also because, like I said, I'm very old school and I really believe in education, and I wanted to have a very serious base. I was very passionate about textiles, and I still am very passionate. But in college you will not only study how to make repeating patterns, you will study weaving and fiber arts and other things. I have a very long video about 19 different kinds of textile design. You can watch it if you are interested. So the decision is basically, do I want to go to college in general? Maybe if you are, graduating from high school and you are considering going to college on textile design, I'm not the person to tell you, if you should or you should not do it. If you are really passionate about it and you are sure you want to dedicate your life to textile design, maybe why not? But again, you absolutely do not have to do it. You can learn it in other ways. Another reason why I went to college was because I was an immigrant, and I was a very educated person, but here people didn't care about it because all my education was from a faraway land and it didn't make sense to them. So I went to college so I could put something on my resume. Of course, it wasn't the most important reason, but it definitely, I think it worked. When people see University of Massachusetts on your resume, it makes way more sense to them than seeing like a place in a country they have never heard of. So that's another thing to think about. A couple words about Skillshare. So I don't know if you are familiar with this platform. You can register there, and usually you get a month, sometimes even 2 or 3 months of free trial, and you can learn a lot in 3 months. Okay, take advantage of it. you can watch unlimited classes in this period of time, and just don't waste the time, you know, just sort of commit to it, take notes. I still, you know, take Skillshare classes sometimes if I need to learn about marketing, online shop, or anything like that. There are resources in lots of great topics. They are really valuable classes. Not all of them are, but you know, you can do your research and find some really good ones. And even if you do end up paying for classes, it's not that expensive. I don't remember the price, but what I'm saying is, if you are really on a tight budget, take advantage of that free trial. I know, you know, money is an issue for many of us, so yeah, there are ways. There are even free YouTube resources. Like if you have a specific question, you can Google it and, you know, look it up on YouTube, and I'm sure almost always you can find classes. One important thing to know is that very often in design you can do the same thing in like 5 different ways, and sometimes, you know, you follow a tutorial and it's just not clicking with you, like you can't figure it out. Maybe try a different creator, try a different person's vision. So yes, that's it. So that's it for today. If you have enjoyed this video, if it was helpful for you, I would appreciate your like. It's a free way of saying thank you to me. If you have any questions, please do ask them in the comments. And remember, patterns are everywhere. Follow me on Instagram, it's pattern_talent, and check out my spoonflower shop with this fabric and with the black bugs fabric as well, and many other cool designs. And remember, patterns are everywhere. I already said that, right? But they are. Bye.